So let's say, right, because the topic of this is how to drive high quality leads. You cannot drive high quality leads unless you have a mantle, and you're not going to drive fulfilling leads unless you're walking in your anointing. Not going to happen. It's just not. You may be able to generate leads. You may be able to generate decent leads, but you're not going to be able to generate fulfilling high quality leads. It's not going to happen for you until you do the hard work or you have us help you with it, which I would love to do. And so once you have that, so let's move forward. Let's move to an area, a territory where most of you are not at, just to be honest. But let's move past this gigantic boulder. My encouragement is once you have your mantle, what do you do? What do you do? I highly encourage you to do a mix, short-term, long-term. There are way too many people right now that are all short-term. So they're doing Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It's all short term. And so that, now are there some TikToks that take off and go viral and everything and months later they're still doing stuff? Yes, not the rule. That's the exception. Some people experience that. Most people do not. For the most part, all of that Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, temporary. It's temporary. And doesn't mean it's not good. But can you take 3 months off from your business and still generate the same kind of leads, same kind of sales, same kind of business? Probably not. Probably not. Probably not even close. Okay. And so I would just encourage you, learn some of the longer term things too, right? So learn the Pinterest, right? Learn, YouTube. That's something, we have years old that still generates leads and sales. And there are some things that we sell and I'm like, how are we even selling this? Like, I don't even know where we promote this thing. I haven't promoted it in years. And it's we'll get a sale every once in a while of this thing, an ebook or a course or something that I'm like, I don't even remember last time I sold it. Wouldn't you like to have that problem? So for years I had, my blog, right? Blog, it's long-term strategy. YouTube, long-term strategy. Pinterest, long-term strategy. We have in Rank Makers, we have an expert go live every week with a Pinterest tip of the week, with a YouTube tip of the week, every week. And so if you want to generate high quality leads, imagine having your mantle of exactly who you're helping, how you're helping them, why they should listen to you. And you're tackling both short-term and long-term. Just awesome, right? That is an awesome setup. That is an awesome scenario. And so and I know most people, when they think about a brand, they know, right? Let me just ask this. Let me not assume. If you know that when you pick a brand, it's narrow, it's more narrow than what you currently are. Does everyone know this? Pretty common. Hopefully you know this. I think you do. I don't want to make an assumption though. Do you know, like a brand isn't I serve all people? That's no brand, right? A brand is something more specific, right? Do we know this? So for you to have a brand at all, it has to serve a more specific person, right? So what is it you do? I help animals. Oh, all animals? Yep. All animals. Okay, got it. What do you do? Oh, I help Bernedoodles. If I have a Bernedoodle, am I going to say, yeah, I'm going to go to the guy that does all animals? No, that'd be ridiculous. No one would make that choice. Well, they help all animals, so they must know a lot more. They help iguanas and goldfish and, Siamese cats. And, I think the person that handles all animals is smarter than the one that specifically handles my animal. No one is making that choice. Nobody. So one of the issues that people have with branding is for you to have a good brand, it needs to be more narrow. And you think that that's going to limit you. Actually, because the biggest problem about content, about creating live videos, about creating TikToks, about creating Instagrams, about creating YouTubes, about creating Pinterest, about creating anything is when the world's your oyster, right? When you can talk about anything, you can't be specific about anything. When everything is out there, what am I going to talk about? That's going to make anybody want to follow you. So actually, when you come up with that specific thing, I'm going to help people with their grief. Now you're laser guided. Now you're pinpointed. You're going to look for anything that's going to help people around grief. And that makes you so much richer as a content creator. It makes you so much easier to follow. Now, is everyone going to follow you? No. But remember the topic, it's high quality leads. For high quality leads, you need a hungry audience that wants what you are serving up Anyone have a breakthrough so far? Anyone, has this been helpful so far? Because it's counterintuitive. Ray, you're saying the more narrow I get in my brand, the easier my content becomes? Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. Sounds counterintuitive. Not only does it help you with how to come up with content easier, but it helps you dig a trench. It helps people say, oh, they're known for this. Oh, that's what they do. And how narrow. It is so difficult. I personally, I've never seen it. I've literally never seen anything too narrow. Never. One that I was blown away by, I heard, I forget who shared this. I think it might have been Damon John. I was at an event and I heard him share this, but he ran into a guy that his specialty was like 1993 to 1995 hip hop. That was his specialty. That was like his brand, right? Which, is that his anointing? I don't think it's his anointing, but just in the example of, wow, that's pretty narrow. And like movies would like hire him because he was the expert of 1993 to 1995 hip hop. And so I'm not suggesting someone on here is going to be like, oh man, I know Wu-Tang. I know ODB, right? Someone on here is like, I'll take that brand. I can do that. No, that's not what I'm saying. One, I don't think that's even his anointing, but he probably had a successful business, but that's pretty darn narrow. I help Labrador puppies that are 6 weeks old specifically. I think you'd kill it. I think you'd crush it. Now, we're not just talking about what works. We're talking about what are you most blessed, most equipped, most anointing to help. And so it's going to be based, I've yet to see an example that it wasn't. It's going to be based on what have you been through? What have you been through? And so you figure that out. Your content becomes better. You gain more followers. Your influence increases. All of your content is just getting easier because you have that North Star. You have that thing that you're pointing at. And that, along with helping you with your sabotage, helping you with the day-to-day of looking over your stuff, looking over your onboarding, looking over your scripts, looking over your headlines, looking over your different stuff. That's where I would love to help you. But that is the key. So the key, just to fill in the clue here, the key to high quality leads for free, have your mantle, okay? And if you want fulfilling life, a fulfilled life with high quality leads for free, it's walking in your anointing, being specific on who you help, answering those 3 questions, creating the content that's much easier now that you have, your mantle, your exact, what you're operating under, your umbrella. Some people might like that word, your umbrella of what am I operating under, right? If it's not under this umbrella, don't operate in it. Don't go there. So I know that, my tagline, if you've seen it, I help business owners increase their profits while putting God first. So I know if there's something that falls, so dog shampoo, I don't promote. It's not under that umbrella. So by knowing my umbrella, I know what to say no to. So when people come to me with something that does not have to do with increasing profits, earlier today, I did an interview with my buddy Josh about debt. Well, guess what? If you want to increase your profits, you got to know how to be a good steward of money. You got to know how to deal with debt. You got to be good at finances. Falls right under my mantle. No problem at all. And so walking in your anointing, knowing your mantle or your umbrella, knowing exactly who you're helping and creating that easy content specific to that, that is the key to not just high quality leads for free, but also to fulfillment and also to freedom in your business. Because I have freedom in my business. I asked the Lord this was probably back in probably October. And I'm like, Lord, what do you want to create for me in my business? The word I got? Freedom. And I realized that there were a lot of projects and a lot of things that I was associated with that I didn't feel free. I felt like I had to do these certain things. And it was kind of, I got to do this thing. And he said, man, I feel so free. I feel so free.